with liberty and justice for all.
Commissioner Thompson, invocation.
Yes. Almighty God, you are our creator and our sustainer. You are our light and our fortress. You are our wisdom and our strength. We ask for your guiding hand to lead us through this meeting. May we approach our task with wisdom, and may we approach our members with respect. May our conduct create an environment of cooperation and kindness. Thank you for your helping us to accomplish our work this day. We ask these things in your powerful name. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you. Roll call.
Commissioner Rivers,
Here.
Commissioner Way,
Here.
Commissioner Brown,
Here.
Commissioner Thompson,
Here.
Commissioner West.
Joining us remotely today
Yeah.
from Tallahassee. Great. That brings us to adoption and approval of agenda. Does anybody have any agenda items they'd like to modify? Hearing nothing, do I have a motion to approve?
I so moved.
So moved, and a second.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
That brings us to public comment. Members of the public? Not yet. Government representative comments. Could we start with our newest government representatives from the Coast Guard Auxiliary, Henry and Lynn, if y'all want to
Thank you.
kick things off for us.
Thank you very much. Appreciate meeting you all and getting to know you, and that's really our purpose here, is to tell you a little bit about what we do as Coast Guard representatives and what the Coast Guard Auxiliary is all about. I have a few slides to show you. Won't take much of your time, but I wanted to just run through the questions that you had and how they interrelate to what we do in navigation safety particularly.
If you could just say your name for the record, please, sir.
Yes.
Thank
My
you.
name is Henry Seiden from the Coast Guard Auxiliary, and shortly Lynn McClellan will join me, and we're here to talk today about navigation services and how we can work together with you. As far as navigation services, a little bit today about the who, what, and why, and how we work together to assure boating safety for the general public, and also navigation aid maintenance, which is part of our connection to the Coast Guard, and what they have asked us to do is to work with the local communities in that regard. So the quick elevator pitch that I have is a little bit about the auxiliary and a little bit about navigation. We're a uniformed and civilian volunteer part of the Coast Guard. Obviously, the military side and we work together, and we perform many of the same missions as the Coast Guard, except for military and direct law enforcement. Our mission in the auxiliary is, our primary mission is recreational boating safety. Can you guys can hear me okay if I'm not on the microphone? So we volunteer our time and we assist the Coast Guard in accessing information and interchange of information to and from local communities and cities, states, and counties as well. And the services we engage in with direct assistance to the Coast Guard is encouraging that kind of communication. And we also reach out to the general public to tell them about boating safety and how to stay safe on the water. One of the ways is to observe and deal with the aids to navigation. And that's the purpose of my talk today. What are aids to navigation? Okay, we have different kinds of aids that you'll see in the water. This chart shows kind of a bird's eye view, much as you would see, looking down upon the waterways. It shows the differences between what are known as lateral aids, those that encourage you to stay between them for best water, deepest water channel, and warning aids that indicate, formations of rocks or other places you don't want to go. They'll show anything from an entry to a waterway, for instance, the St. Augustine Inlet, or to a rock warning or location of a marine area where you where you would tie up your boat. This picture looks a little bit like a chart, so that if you had a chart, you would see similar indications on that. This kind of looks like a bird's eye view of the actual aids. Same kind of thing, but just a different view, depending on what you're using to navigate with. And this view is specific to the area that you guys have control over, which is the private aids in Salt Run. That was an area that we received a report a few weeks ago about an aid that had been damaged, and we searched for connection with you guys to report it to you as the ownership. So that is what we try to do, is we gather those reports and try to bring them, in the case of public or private aids, we'll bring them to the owner of the aid for addressing the issue. In the case of federal aids, the Coast Guard responds directly to those. We have a 24-hour mandate to identify and determine the actual condition of a reported aid. This is a kind of an old picture that my partner Lynn had discovered back in our in printed records of the application that was made pre-2010 or so, when first established the mooring fields and the aids to navigation to get to them. You may find it interesting. We went from in the Coast Guard, we went from collecting physical records through the electronic process of converting them and developing a database that is maintained electronically throughout the Coast Guard to track aids nationwide. And that process is using a database called IATONUS. I won't get into the mnemonics, since nobody likes mnemonics, and I very rarely remember them anyway. But this is just a database printout of the Salt Run beacons. We don't track mooring fields per se. We only track the aids to navigation. So this is a list of all of the aids you have in Salt Run right now, and the ones that we monitor and communicate with you about. What do we use for communicating to the public? We use, and what the public is recommended to use, are 3 different methods. Number one, via internet. We have a pretty extensive navigation center set up that you can contact, and there are, maybe hard to read, but there are links to the navigation center where you can download what's known as the light list, and where you can download a document that's called Local Notices to Mariners. The same notices that we have here on the web are also broadcast live every day, 7 days a week, 365, on VHF channel 16 and or VHF channel 22A. So that means that somebody in the Coast Guard is reading out what happened over the last 24-hour period to an aid, what damage was reported, and whether or not it was put back in service. And that is done for all the aides in a given area. So, for example, in Sector Jacksonville, which covers this area, every morning and every evening, they will give you a radio report of what damage results to an aid and what has been done to fix that. In addition to that, there's also these printed reports that are available to download, and there's also a way in which you can contact the individual sector with a telephone report to feed back what you've seen on the water that's not working. And they take that and use that same channel of communication back to the Coast Guard. Okay. So that, in a nutshell, is what we do in terms of reporting and connecting the ownership of an aid to the problems that were reported by the public and the problems that we've seen on the water as well. Our purpose here today is to open that chain of communication, open those lines of communication, and find a way that we can work together. And I also will review one issue that Matt brought to my attention a few weeks ago as to Matanzas River South that was reported, and not the only report, but his report as well, indicated that there was a lot of shoaling in that area, especially near Marineland. So I can report to you today that we went ahead based on contact with the Army Corps of Engineers and with other people and narrowed the channel as it went south to yield the best water, so that boaters will have less opportunity to run aground if they know that there's 8 foot of water there. And that's about the best you can hope for at this point. We've taken action on that. Are there any other questions or any other comments that anybody has about what we're talking about here today? Yes.
Do you actually move the markers yourself as auxiliary, or
We don't do that, no.
Coast Guard does it,
Coast
or-
Guard has a very large contingent of people that supports federal aids. We've gone out, our mission, though, is to go out and determine if there is a problem, either with a federal aid or a private aid. So we do go out and look for issues and report them. We don't physically do that because, number one, we don't have the tools to do it. To move a piling or to move a floating aid is not something that we have the tools to do. But that's a good question. Thanks.
So going forward, the procedure for us, if we hear a report from either the public or law enforcement or similar that one of our aides is, down or in danger of going down, we should let y'all know, it sounds like.
Yes, there is a number at Sector that you can call. It goes directly to the watchstander at Sector Jacksonville, and that would be your report point. And it's actually on that slide, but I can give you that as well. You can call me, I guess, but it'd be better off since they're 24/7. You call them, and what they do is they put it on a hot list for action, as I told you, either by radio or by email to the navigation station, or eventually it'll wind up on the internet as a problem if it's not solved right away.
And then likewise, going forward, if y'all receive a report about one of the salt run markers going down, you'll let us know.
Yes, it gets to me eventually. It doesn't happen immediately. I would recommend that you also set up a program to monitor the public information notice to mariners and also the light list, so that you can identify your aids, and on a weekly basis that is updated. So there's that too.
Right.
But I'm more than happy to get back to you on problems that we see.
The notice to mariners, do they have an app yet that you don't need to be on the radio? You can
There is, the only way right now is through the Nav Center, and that is via the web, that you can address them, address that and download it on a regular basis. Maybe at some point they will do an app, but right now, the way things are going with navigation on boats, a lot of people are using electronic means to determine that. And the electronic part of it, I didn't really talk too much about it, but it's an electronic interface to your chart plotter, if you have that, or to your GPS. And that is actually going to be updated on the same basis, a weekly basis. So that would be the most immediate way of doing it.
Thanks. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Okay, I'd like to introduce Lynn, who will get in a plug for an organization that she works with as well.
Thank you. I'll also follow up on Henry's discussion of aids to navigation. Beg your pardon?
State your name.
I'm sorry, thank you. Lynn McClelland, that's L-Y-N. McClelland is M-C, capital C-L-E-L-L-A-N-D. Before I say anything further, I want to tell you all how absolutely wonderful Elise has been. I was working as this flotilla's representative for aids to navigation, a job which I held for about 3 years. And I discovered Elise, and so when there was anything going on in Salt Run, I would call her and say, so what do we do about this? And she's always been wonderful guiding me to the Commission for the aids to navigation in Salt Run, and then to the city marina for the aids that are the mooring buoys in that area. In this area, going from Villages of Volano Marina on the north down to Treasure Beach down in the south end, we've got a total of 54 private aids to navigation that are operated by 9 different entities, from the Florida Department of Transportation for the resting buoys, for instance, to local outfits like Treasure Beach and Villages of Volano. And so our particular responsibility is to try to assure that all those aids are watching properly. We also, of course, report the public aids. Those are the ones that the Coast Guard maintains. And it's wonderful to have an opportunity to talk with you, because it gives us an opportunity to understand these private aids owners a little better. Very few of them understand that the reason that they've got a marking outside their marina or whatever is because someone came to the Coast Guard and filed to have these put in and agreed that they would comply with the Coast Guard system of symbols and so forth. So they don't know that, so they very often will wander off with something different that a mariner who is not from their local community would not understand in terms of its precaution it's giving to the mariner. So that's part of the fun we have. Henry is our division officer for aids to navigation, so he's got a number of flotillas reporting to him, and he does a wonderful job. We're very proud of him. The other thing I wanted to mention to you is that I am the only local representative who is a volunteer for the Coast Guard Academy Admissions Department. So if you know youngsters who think they might be interested in attending the Coast Guard Academy, you can certainly go online to our website and get great information. But if you want to talk to a local, I'm here. I do my best to call on all 9 of the county high schools. We've just had some students accepted from Nice and from Ponte Vedra, as well as Bartram Trail. So I'm waiting for Beachside and a little more action from Creekside and Tocoi and so forth. Wonderful schools, wonderful students, fabulous free opportunity to attend one of the best engineering schools in the country at very little charge to the student, and no congressional nomination is needed.
Where is it?
So we're here for you.
Where is the?
Where is it?
It's in New London, Connecticut.
Connecticut.
And the cadet size, our cadet contingent is between 1,000 and 1,100 students. That's smaller than virtually any high school we've got in St. Johns County. Pretty incredible. Student-teacher ratio is 7-to-1, and the education is without compare. So we are here, we are happy to help, and I would be delighted to speak to any youngster who's interested in the academy. This is a great time of the year for juniors because they can apply for 5 days at the academy next July to be treated like a fourth-classman, a freshman, and really learn whether the Coast Guard Academy is for them. So that is going to close on April the 1st. So April the 15th, I'm sorry. So we want to get the word out. Thank you for your time. You've been very kind. Any questions about the academy?
I'd just like to comment that my husband was a graduate of the academy for the class of 1963, and it was a wonderful experience for him. And any young person, I can't imagine a greater educational opportunity.
Thank you. I couldn't agree more. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thanks to you both. Any other government representatives? There are a lot of y'all here today.
Good afternoon, Jim Piggott, City of St. Augustine. I have my Steve Zukowski list, so I may take a little while. I got 3 items for you. First of all, verified, and I don't know, since I wasn't here at the last meeting, if Corey told you that the aid to navigation and salt run has been repaired and it's up. It's been fixed. The other thing, it's not a done deal yet, but we've been coordinating with FWC, and over by Bird Island, if you're familiar with that, it looks like that FWC will approve. It's not approved yet. We're waiting for the meeting, a no wake zone area. Just to familiarize yourself with what we're talking about. If you're traveling from south to north with Bird Island directly to your right, to your east, there's a blind turn right there, and that meets the FWC classification of a blind turn. So there's going to be 3 or 4 signs in that area. And if you turn left and go west, before you get to the land, there's another blind turn, and we're going to put some signs right there as well. We're expecting to get that approval hopefully this month. I'm not sure when the FWC Commission meets again, but it should be on their agenda for them for final approval. Our commission already approved it, so we're waiting on their final approval before we can begin installing the signs. So we're hoping that the signs will begin going up sometime in late April.
About going into Hospital Creek.
Hospital Creek, right.
Yeah, we wrote a letter in support of this. to
You did,
FWC.
yeah. So, and we appreciate that letter. That helped as well. So that's where we are with those 2 areas. The last thing, I just want to, this will be my last port meeting.
Oh, wow. He's retired.
15 years, been through a bunch of commissioners. I think you and maybe Commissioner Blow, when he was up here, you outlasted me, so congratulations. Everyone, most of you were all very easy to work with. Just want to thank everyone here. Lise, thank you very much. Commissioner West, thank you. I see you and Lisa's hand. Been through 3 attorneys, Jeff Dobson, Clay, and Jim Bledsoe. Several Taylor Engineering folks, thank you. One of the biggest things that I want to see continue is the law enforcement and you guys and find we've been told over and over again it's the best unity, best group in getting derelict boats out of the water in the entire state. We want to keep that going on. So, thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Yeah, congratulations, Jim.
Jim, we will miss you.
Yes,
we
we
will
certainly
miss
will.
you. Well,
Are you retiring or what's happening?
Retired.
Okay, thank you, thank you.
Well, I challenge any other government representative to follow that.
Jim, you're not leaving town, are you?
No,
Okay.
just on cruises.
Okay.
So you're going to start attending these meetings as a member of the public then?
I don't live in Port District.
Aaron Braddock, St. Johns County Sheriff's Office Marine Unit.
Bill Miller, LT for St. John.
Just wanted to say we will be participating with the Blessing of the Fleet. They did get the permits that they needed for all of that. FWC will be heading the operations for that. And as far as some of the derelicts that y'all may be aware of from the storm, those are being processed. Everything's going through the FWC grant to get those removed.
Yeah, I think we have 6 on a list waiting to be removed right now.
So if anybody has any questions on those, you can let them know they are being worked. There are several down by the Doug Crane area that insurance is removing. I saw a towboat out yesterday removing one of them. But they're all, everything from the storm has been processed at this point.
Good.
Great.
No more updates from FWC, just we have the blessing coming up and we got the op plan for that, so see me afterwards. You got any questions? Guys got anything for us?
I don't think so. Thanks, fellas.
Appreciate it.
Anybody else?
Appreciate it.
City Fire? Nothing? City PD? Nothing? No, sir. All right.
Don't want a submarine, another helicopter, nothing?
Yes. Well, that concludes government representative comments. We can now move on to Secretary Treasurer's report.
Okay, for the city police law enforcement overtime of the 8,000 committed, we've spent nothing yet. For the St. Johns County Sheriff's Department overtime of the 25,000 committed, we spent 7,133. Derelict boats, we've only spent 2,952. Channel marker repairs of the 10,005 that was committed, we've spent 9,470. In the Florida State Board of Administration, we have $23,766. In the operating account, we have $787,034. And in the money market account, we have $1,114,500. So that brings the total available right now to $1,925,350. And we have committed $432,000, and our available funds are $1,492,934. For the taxes budgeted for this year, we budgeted $716,620. We received $649,263. Our balance of expected tax revenue is $67,357.
Great. Any questions on that? Any comment? Good, thank you. Next is approval of minutes from the February 21st, 2023 meeting. Did anybody have any modifications or questions or concerns about those? No? Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
So moved. Commissioner
I'll
Thompson?
second it.
All in favor? Aye. That was good timing. Good. Next up is engineering report.
All right. Not a whole lot to report this month. It's a little bit of the lull before the storm. There's going to be a lot of activity out on the beach over the summer. Both St. Augustine Beach and the Volano Beach projects are going to be rebuilt by the Corps. So there'll be, like I said, a lot of activity. I think that's going to kick off in July. There's a report pending for the Summer Haven feasibility work that the county's sponsoring, and that actually was supposed to be available mid-March, but I don't think I've seen it yet, so keeping an eye out for that. And I don't want to steal Carl's thunder necessarily, but there's a dredging project up in Palm Valley that's getting initiated right now, and there's a project this fall, I believe, that's going to be scheduled for Matanzas. Is that about right? He wants to add to that.
Well, that's a nice transition because we have no old business, so that brings us to new business. Carl Blow-Fine is going to talk about Genovar property.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Carl Blow with the Florida Inland Navigation District, 100 Santa Monica Avenue, St. Augustine. I want to say, first off, I've done everything I could think of to try to get Mr. Pickett not to retire and to continue with the city. I assume y'all know this. The Coast Guard Academy issue came up, which is a great organization, and not only is it a great place to get an education, but it's a great place to have a career too. But I just want to point out that that's a West Point graduate back there. Mr. Pickett is a West Point graduate, and of course he had to get some congressman, I guess, to endorse him. So I didn't realize the Coast Guard, you didn't need that, because I would have applied if I knew I didn't have to get that.
It's never too late.
But anyway, it will be, yeah, really? Anyway, it may be for me. But anyway, I just want to say the 17 years that Mr. Pickett's been here have been very productive years, and I can't think of a better person to work with. And we've gotten, with his efforts, a lot done. His efforts with this commission as well as with the Florida Inland Navigation District. So I'll keep trying to talk him into not leaving. But anyway, what I've got is you've got a handout in front of you, and this is kind of an update on several things. The first thing was mentioned. The FIND and the Corps is about to crank up a dredging project up in Palm Valley, and we've completed the portion north of the Palm Valley Bridge, and then this is a portion south of the Palm Valley Bridge down to Pine Island. FIND, which using your tax dollars is paying for pretty much all of this. And it's working out to be about $18 a cubic yard. The material is going into SJ14, which is our facility there at Davis Park. So anyway, this is going to be cranking up, literally they got the notice to proceed March the 1st, so there should be plenty of activity up there going forward. The next thing you've got is Matanzas. We've received a lot of complaints about shoaling in this area, and it's definitely, as the Coast Guard Auxiliary pointed out, it's a real safety hazard, and it's a high priority on both FIND's and Corps' and the Corps' list. Basically, the Corps plans that it's going to be administered by the Corps. They plan to award this project towards the end of August. The quantities have kind of increased over time as they've looked at this project. I think we're looking at about 350,000 cubic yards. They say between 300,000 and 400,000 cubic yards. This material is beach quality. We normally put it on the beach, and it typically goes on the beach kind of where the breach occurred. So we have all our DEP permits. We're ready to go. Obviously, it's a high priority project. The county has contacted the Corps about potentially, they haven't really made clear what they wanted, but perhaps asking us or asking the Corps or us to maybe put the sand in a little bit different place, but I don't have any additional information. And I think the county's still just looking at the situation. It's a developing situation, and the Summer Haven people here, they may probably have more information than even I. But anyway, that's a project that is high priority. The next thing in this little handout is basically, we had our FIND board meeting here last Friday, and this was, one of the things on the consent agenda, and I thought you might find it interesting. Here again, this is the city's good work. This happens to, they had come through with a grant application for derelict boat removal, and this is from the application. It just shows the 4 vessels that they're going to be removing, what the costs are, and they actually, the city broke out the costs of towing, haul out, demolition, and of course the fees from the landfill. But anyway, I thought y'all might find this interesting. Obviously, you guys are paying for 25%, I think, on this, and give you an idea what these derelict boats are costing. But we receive these applications from every county. It's up and down the East Coast. Of course, there's also FWC funding. I think the city's pursuing FWC funding as well as funding from Fine, and it's getting to be a significant amount of money. Fortunately, the legislature did provide funding to FWC for this program. So, here again, it's a problem. The last thing in here is something that I may defer to the chair on, but we were in a meeting with the GTM MAG, and the Corps was there to do a presentation on the St. Augustine's Back Bay study, which you guys might have heard of. The Corps' Back Bay study is designed to look at the flooding issue and the storm surge results from storms, and what can possibly be done to address that or mitigate for the damage. And so they've just cranked up this study. It's a 3-year study. Fortunately for the city of St. Augustine, it's usually a 50-50 match. It's a $3 million study. The city was successful at getting the federal government to pay the local match, so the city's not paying, they're not responsible for any of the $3 million. It's all federal dollars. And the Corps obviously is doing the study. But as time goes on, it's going to be, it will be interesting to see how the study progresses. They're basically looking at all potential actions to take, including doing nothing. So it's just a matter of staying tuned. What this letter is since they're starting the study, the initial start is they reach out to all stakeholders and ask for comments. And if you look at this letter, it's from Find, obviously, and it basically just goes on record saying who we are and what we do, and we want to be on the list every time you have a meeting or do anything. So that's the purpose of this letter. So other than that, you got any questions so far on any of this? Okay. I'm on here for the San Sebastian River. And to give you a little background on the river, and Mr. Pickett may jump in here too because he was heavily involved in this, but back in 2009 or even a little earlier than that, we were having problems on the San Sebastian River, which of course is St. Johns County's only working waterfront. And we have numerous marinas, repair facilities here, marine repair facilities, and also, of course, the shrimping industry has a big influence there. But we were having some problems on the river with shoaling. And to give you a little history about the San Sebastian River channel, it is a federal channel. The aids navigations are maintained by the U.S. Coast Guard. The channel itself was established as far as a federal channel in 1956. And basically way back then, the locals apparently got some money from the federal government to establish the channel and improve it and dredge it. So that was done in 1956. And really after that, nothing was done to the channel. For one thing, it's fairly stable. And along probably about 2007 or 8, there was a significant problem there at St. Augustine Marine. There's a real tight bend there, and I think it's day marker number 5, if I remember correctly. But what was happening, it was shoaling on the west side at the tight turn, and it was right opposite their travel lift, and they were having trouble launching boats. They would launch a boat, and the stern would run aground. And they actually came to this board and the Port District, actually with Taylor's help with permitting and so forth, did a kind of an emergency dredging job in that one spot. And so they took care of that, but that's when we and I was on the board at the time, and that's when we realized that we generally had a problem in the whole river. And then again, working with Taylor, the first thing we had to do was get it permitted with DEP, because DEP did not exist in 1956, so on there they had no record of it. So working with Taylor, and it was a pretty extensive permitting effort, because at the time there was concerns that if we dredged the river, the material that we dredged out could contain heavy metals, which would make it a hazardous material. The reason for that was because of all the boat yards that had existed on that river for decades. Fortunately, after extensive testing required by DEP, it turned out that none of the material was contaminated. It was going to be treated as just normal dredge material, which is pretty amazing considering there's a Superfund site up there by King Street. But at any rate, so we moved forward, and this board, in cooperation with the city, or the city really, make basically grant applications to find. We're using a match from this board. It was a 25% match and 75% fine grants. We actually did 2 fine grants and spent about $400,000. And we, if I remember correctly, we dredged about 40,000, maybe a little over 40,000 cubic yards, and got the river back to its original design, 1956 design. And when we were doing that, basically Lures, they had their facility on the west bank, which is a large piece of property. And the city went to the Lures brothers and said, hey, we need some help because we got to dredge the river, and we need a place to unload this material and maybe even dry it out a little bit and transport it to a permanent site. And of course, the Lures guys were cooperative, and we did actually a license agreement. And so we were able to dredge the river and immediately take it to that location and get it off the barge and into trucks and hauled off. So that kind of brings us up to today. As you guys know, and I mean, obviously you know because you've provided significant funding to the county, the good news is the county is purchasing the Genovar property, and the plan is to build a public boat ramp there. And they're coming to, obviously I think you guys provided $1.2 million for that project for the, as part of the land purchase, which is I think around $31 million, something like that. Or no, it was 31 acres, and I think the cost was 14, 14 and some change. So, and I salute you guys for doing that. That was fantastic. So what the county's doing is in this grant cycle for fine, they're coming to fine with a grant application for the land purchase, or part of the funding, and it works out to be $700,000 approximately, because that's the maximum amount of money that's available this grant cycle for anything in St. Johns County from fine. So I've been working with county staff on that, and part of that effort is we requested the city to stand down and not ask for any fine grant money this cycle, so that the plan was to have only one application from all of St. Johns County at fine. So so that's what we've been working on, and the way the mechanics of a fine grant works is the applicant prepares the application, which is a multi-page application, and they're required to get the local fine commissioner not to approve it, but to initial that he's read it, and he or she's read it, and at least they've seen it, because then what happens is it's submitted to Fine by the deadline for all grants, which this year is March the 27th, and then it's reviewed by Fine staff. They look for any deficiencies, and they give the applicant an opportunity to supply additional information. But in June, there's a Fine board meeting, 2-day meeting, and basically what we do is the applicants all come down. They're scheduled to come down and do presentations of their grant applications, and the commissioners on the Fine board score those applications. And based on the scoring, the higher you score, well, what happens, let me back up, is in our budget we have a certain amount of money for this grant program, and I think this year I want to say it's $15 million. And we'll probably get about 35 or 40 grant applications, and they usually, when you add them all up, they'll add up to $35 million or something like that. And so what happens is the Fine commissioners, each commissioner scores each grant application, and then the scores are averaged, and then all the grant applications are ranked from the best to the I won't say the worst, but from the highest score to the lowest score. And then, based on their dollar amounts, you go down the list, and when you run out of $15 million, they draw a line, and everything above the line gets funded, everything below the line doesn't. So the score is very important. And where we are on this particular grant application is I come from the world of dealing with documents. I'm in commercial real estate, and documents rule. If it's not in the document, you're in trouble. So when the application came to me for my initials, it was they just stated there was going to be a regional boat ramp. So being involved in this project from 2009, 2010, when we dredged the San Sebastian River, I got the idea that maybe it should be more specific. And the reason for that, and what I was looking for, is I was suggesting to the county, I said, look, why don't you put in the application that this proposed public boat ramp will be available for the unloading of dredge material that's dredged from the navigation channel in the San Sebastian River. The reason I wanted that in there, or suggested it, is what we're seeing in St. Augustine, obviously, is a lot of growth. And I actually serve on the Planning and Zoning Board for the city. And we're basically, where we are on the San Sebastian River, is there's really no more vacant land left. All that West Bank area that's currently kind of undeveloped, or is the old Lures property, is been purchased by the Windward Group, which is a large marina management group, and it's all been approved, or in the process of being approved, for retail apartments. The apartments are under construction, and the last thing they're going to do is a single-family development with a community dock there on the south end. So what I'm seeing is that what we did in 2009, 2010, where we went and cut a deal with the Lures folks to haul the material out, that window is closing. So that in another year or two, the only public access that would be available to unload dredge material would be this new boat ramp, this new public boat ramp. So anyway, I'm kind of negotiating with the county that before they put that grant application into Fine, that they be more specific about what's allowed at that public boat ramp, that you can unload dredge material, and also other commercial uses like dock builders and folks like that, they have a place to pick up material, which is very, very important, and which is what they do right now at the city's ramp there in Lighthouse Park. You'll see people like Yelton and other marine contractors come in there and pick up material to, go build docks or repair docks. Also, when it's necessary, that boat ramp is used to unload dredged material out of Salt Run when there's a project going on. So,
Carl, is there, sorry to interrupt, is
Yeah,
there a
go
reason,
ahead.
is there a reason why the county wouldn't want to say that in their application? Why would they be, you said you're negotiating, so.
yeah, I don't know why. One reason I'm pushing it is because we run into issues like this in other communities up and down the East Coast where local communities may want to restrict commercial use of boat ramps, and and of course fines. We promote commercial activity, as well as recreational activity. Bottom line is we want as many people to have access to these facilities that we fund as possible. And commercial activity is critical to maintaining the intercoastal waterway. We got to have dock builders. We just had the Coast Guard Auxiliary talking about maintaining nav aids. Well, if you're going to maintain a private nav aid, you got to have a place to load those piling or whatever onto a barge to go out and replace a nav aid. Of course, in addition to that, we have the commercial fishing industry. Here again at Lighthouse Park, there's probably at least 4 commercial fishing guides that operate out of there. And that's critical, that's very important to the tourism industry. So anyway, I just thought I'd make you guys aware of it. Hopefully that the final application is submitted for this grant cycle, that it will be more specific about the use of commercial entities, and especially being able to unload dredged material out of the San Sebastian River to maintain that channel. For one thing, my fellow commissioners are going to be looking for that language, and if they don't see it, they're going to ask the presenter about it. So, and the last thing you want to do in a situation like that is to give any indication that you wouldn't allow commercial activity at a boat ramp, because that could cause it could get you a low score. And if you get a low score, you might not get funded. So that's kind of where we are on the Genovar property, and I thought I'd just bring you guys up to date.
Carl, the space you would need is no different than a boat ramp.
You
have to have a designated one.
Now, I will say, the county did something, and I wish I could give the person credit, whoever came up with the idea, but if you go to Volano, you've got your dual boat ramp there, and then on that, immediately to the west of the boat ramps, they have an area for barges to come up. That seawall is designed for barges to come up and be able to load and unload material. And we often cite that as an example of how a public boat ramp should be built, because they actually designate a place for a barge there. Now, Lighthouse Park, there isn't a lot of room. When Taylor initially got the permits for the improvement of Lighthouse Park, the dredging footprint includes an area to the south of the actual ramp, so that a barge can pull up there and not be right in front of the ramp. But to answer your question, you really don't need any particularly special construction. In the case of the Genovar property, you just need to be able to, say during the week when it's slow, bring up a barge at the ramp, back dump trucks down and load from the barge into the dump trucks. So,
Has the county even determined how many ramps they're going to have?
well, they have 500 lineal feet of frontage on the river there, so I would guess they would have a ramp at a minimum that could accommodate three trucks, cars, whatever, simultaneously, side by side. So that would be, I mean, thinking about Lighthouse Park, that ramp's probably, I don't know, 75 feet wide, something like that.
I mean, this could endanger them getting the funding from fine.
Well, that's kind of the message I'm trying to send them, is they need to
Well,
be more specific about
But
it.
to be clear, that funding would just be
For the land purchase.
compensating them for money they'd already outlaid, because they've already bought it.
Right, they've already bought it, yeah.
Okay, so they're
But
trying
as
to get
they-
some money back.
Yeah,
Okay.
this is trying to, and then, but of course, going forward, they're going to want to build the thing.
Right.
And they'll be coming back for funding for that, so.
Chairman, I don't know what your thoughts on it, but, I mean, I would do whatever I could do as a board member to help facilitate that. Do the businesses in the San Sebastian, when they dredge, do they participate in the cost, or is this?
Not when we did it in 2009, no. And in fairness to them, I mean, their attitude is, well, we're paying taxes.
Well, that's,
You know, what are y'all doing with the tax money, you know?
Right.
So, but,
what
yeah.
are your thoughts on it?
Well, I'd ask Commissioner Blow, it sounds like you're already negotiating with the county on this. Is there a role for us to play in that negotiation at all?
Well, I wanted to make y'all aware of it, because I don't know, it's up to your decision how important you think that is. If you think it's important that ramp is available for unloading dredge material out of that federal channel, then if you want to write a letter or make unofficially contact the rec folks and let them know that you'd like to make sure that's available for dredging operation in the river, it's up to you.
Is it Parks and Rec who are putting that
Yeah.
application together?
Yeah, that's who I work with on that.
Carl, is it your contention that it would just be, at the very least, they would have the ability to move dredge material, or that commercial activity could take place there? Like you were saying, Yelton pulls up a barge to get some pilings and stuff.
Right.
I mean, they use my house quite a bit, because they can pull right up to the bulkhead, and I always help them out when I can, but I know having access to the water, particularly to pick up materials like that is, so I mean, you're looking
Critical,
for the commercial aspect as well as the county being able to
Right.
to dredge.
Well, at a minimum, at least a commitment that, that it could be used to offload dredge material. Because what I think would be horrible would be, we need to dredge, or the San Sebastian River channel needs to be dredged, okay? And, and for some reason in the future, they decided that they don't want that ramp to be used for that. Well, how are you gonna unload the material? It's in a barge. It's got to be unloaded somewhere. And as you probably know, the farther that barge has to go, the higher the cost of the actual dredging. So here again, our fear and what we as Fine are concerned about is the loss of water access for commercial activity up and down the east coast of Florida. I mean, this is something we talk about a lot, because once it's gone, are you gonna? I mean, where are you gonna unload that barge? Are you gonna go all the way to Volano ramp, which is kind of difficult to get in sometimes? Right now they're barging dredge material up to Jacksonville, but that's what is it? $55 a cubic yard. So anyway, it's just if that answers your question, at a minimum, at least, it should be available for a public dredging project.
Chris, do you want to get in touch with Sydney at Parks and Rec and go ahead and start a
Yeah,
conversation?
well, I guess what I was going to ask is how the board felt about it in general, and if we support that maybe we send a letter from the port, with all the, everybody that agrees with it, or I don't know the procedure for
Or you,
Or I would say personally, the dredging in particular strikes me as pretty compelling. I would really like to hear what Parks and Recs, what their justification for not including that in the application is, just to make sure we're not overlooking something important.
maybe, if I can suggest
Go ahead.
this, is either you as chairman or Commissioner Way follow up with Parks and Rec.
Yeah, I'm happy to do that.
I can do that,
Okay,
man. I mean, I'm kind of on the middleman, that you guys wanted me to be the board's liaison to it, so
Great.
I'll reach out.
So maybe in that case, Chris, you can get in touch with Parks and kind of see what's going on and maybe
Yeah.
report back.
Sure.
And we can consider filing a letter or some other
Yeah.
advocacy.
Well, I'm just trying to get, unfortunately, the deadline to get that application in defined is the 27th. So I'm trying to make sure that that application has the language in there that's going to get it the highest possible score. And here, going back to the city's performance with Mr. Pickett over the years, their grant applications we've had several that were number one out of 38 applications from across the east coast of Florida because of the way they prepared the grant application. So, trying to get this one to be a number one. But anyway.
Okay.
Thank
All
you,
right,
Darla.
thank you very much.
So before we proceed to public comment, I just want to quickly poll the board here. Back to the letter that Mr. Blow showed us that Find had written to the Army Corps, and the suggestion that we submit a similar letter. Is there any opposition on this board to me writing a similar letter?
Not from me.
Okay. I'll do that and send it around for comment, and if anybody has any objection to it, they can let Elise know, but otherwise, as long as there's no objection, if you could put it on letterhead and...
Linda, were you
She
okay
was-
with that, or?
she was
Okay, I didn't see
there.
it.
Okay, so I will do that so that we can be on their mailing list as well. Good, thank you, Carl. And that brings us back to public comment. Any members of the public? No? Comments by commissioners? Tom?
No comment.
Chris? I would just want to once again say thank you to Mr. Piggott.
Oh, yeah, I'll second that.
An exemplar of public servants and someone who has given me great faith in the ability of local government to work for the good of all. So congratulations. We're sorry to see you go, but extremely well-earned retirement, I'm sure. Good. Linda?
I just want to thank the Coast Guard Auxiliary for being here today and helping us to understand how we can work together.
Seconded. Looking forward to building that relationship.
Can I just ask one question? Do the Coast Guard Auxiliary have programs for kids?
Yes.
For sailing or?
Glad you asked that, actually.
Because my granddaughter's 7 years old and has a Boston whaler, but.
One of my other hats is as the staff officer for public education. And one of the things we talked about just last night, actually, is a youth program and a way to set that up within the county, specifically in an area. We just revitalized our public education presentation facility, which we had been using the airport facility, the conference center, for a while due to COVID and other things that we were locked out of that. So now that's become available to us again. And I'm happy to report that we're starting to reinvigorate our boating safety classes for adults as well. But it was recommended that we look into and set up a youth program for middle schools, and in which case that would be a program we call Waypoints. And it basically gives those aged children a view of what the Coast Guard Auxiliary does and what the Coast Guard does and so forth. And I'm actively seeking help from our flotillas to set something like that up here. And I think we would be open to a venue or association with the public school district to start something like that up.
Great. Please keep us apprised of your progress there. I had one other thing I wanted to mention, actually. Speaking of the GTM NER, they mentioned they have a bunch of bycatch reduction devices available. So if you know anybody who needs one, apparently they have a lot. I also realized I skipped Commissioner West. Does she have any comments? Nope, that's a big.
I have one comment I'd like to make to the Coast Guard. About 20 years ago, I had my first boat, and I took my son to the Coast Guard class, I think at Comanche Cove, but it was conducted by the Coast Guard, teaching how to tie knots and what all the signals meant, and it really helped me a lot. So I hope that you keep doing that.
Yes, we will, and that is one thing that we are doing more of now, back this time of year, is in-person classes.
Good, thank you.
Involved with online classes previously, but other facilities seem to be more adept at those than our members. So we're doing in-person classes as well.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Well, our next meeting will be April the 18th. Is that right, Elise?
Oh, God, that's tax day. Yes.
Great. Well, there being no other business, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Okay, see you later. Bye. That was a bit much.
Oh, I'm just a advisor, but thank you so much.